David Blackmore, Managing Director of Blackmore Wagyu. Thanks for joining us in the evokeAG studio.
It's my pleasure.
Your session today here at the conference, what's the one thing you'd like or you'd hope that people might take out of it?
A lot of people ask me how we got to where we've got, and I don't think that you can ever take away the fact that it always takes hard work. And there was 3 other speakers talking about how they've come from nothing, family businesses, to where they are today, and every one of them was hard work. You've got to take a lot of risks, but it's that hard work that keeps you going every day, but it also can wear a lot of your staff out, so it's important to keep everybody together.
It's been a long journey in Australia, and now Wagyu is really quite mainstream in many respects. What is it about the beef that makes it what it is and ultimately popular?
So the best answer to that is that 95% of the beef that's sold in Australia that's called Wagyu is F1. So it's 50% Wagyu and 50% another breed. And then when you get to the Japanese Wagyu, which is 100% Wagyu genetics, and what we do, it's a completely different texture, completely different taste than traditional beef. It's as different to traditional beef as lamb, pork, whatever. So it's really a tasting experience. I think some of the chefs have described it to me as that you've got this really caramel, buttery flavour that melts in your mouth. So really you can eat it like good tuna or whatever, and just push it against the roof of your mouth and it disintegrates.
You've been in it for the long haul as a producer. Why? What got you into this style of beef production? Yeah,
look, we were 5th generation farmers, but we didn't have the family farm left to us. I had started in the embryo transplant business in 1979 doing the first on farm, so that took me around the world, and I came across my first Wagyu, and they were actually Wagyu cross cattle in the States in 1988. In 1990, the AMLC, which was the MLA today, had put out a documentation saying that if we increase the meat quality grade by 1 grade for the Japanese market, it was worth an extra $2 billion a year to the Australian. Sorry, I think it was $200 million a year to the Australian industry. So we looked at that. I knew that they were talking about going lot feeding, having feedlots to increase the quality of the meat. But I also knew from what I'd seen overseas that if you cross Wagyu with another breed, you increased it 3 grades. And, that was just a no-brainer to go from there.
Now, Wagyu in Japan is unique.
Yep.
There's nothing quite like it. What about the cattle we have here that we call Wagyu? How do they compare to those from Japan?
Look, some of the best quality Wagyu in Australia is, I'm not going to say it's as good as the Japanese, but we actually export to 14 different countries, and in 12 of those we compete with Japanese produced Wagyu beef, and we haven't lost a market share. So like in Australia, there's, no matter what product, there's different brands have a different quality, have a different flavour or whatever, and that's what we just say out there, well, we're not Japanese Wagyu beef. The genetics were similar 30 years ago. We haven't got any more new genetics out of Japan in that time, so the Japanese industry has increased its genetic capability of their animals much faster than the Western world has. So that's been a challenge to try and find our next generation of bloodlines. So, I don't even now want to compare our beef to Japanese beef. It's got its qualities, we've got ours.
How different or similar is the taste?
I think theirs is really, really rich. Traditionally these very expensive brands in Japan that are now coming to Australia are thinly sliced, and you would be lucky, you perhaps get 50 grams. Most Westerners that are eating Wagyu beef that we market to are wanting a minimum probably of a 200 gram steak. And you consider a normal T-bone is probably 350 grams, so a minimum of 200 grams. And we eat with a knife and fork. So we can cut our own steaks. In Asia, of course, eating with chopsticks, everything's served in bite size. So it's served differently, it's prepared differently. There's a different expectations from your customers, and that's what we're looking at.
Now, it's one thing to produce it and to produce it as well as you do. It's another to market a product like this and internationally have success. How have you achieved that?
I think right from the start we decided to find how to make it as good as we can actually make it, and then with that we took it and targeted at the best chefs in the world, and there were certain there's a group of chefs that have been with us right from day one, both domestically and internationally, and still got it on their menu, have never taken it off. So it was to produce a product it has to be consistent every time you make a delivery, because their customers don't want to eat a product this time. Go next time and say, that was good, I'm going to have that again, and then they're disappointed. So it's really, really important to keep the consistency of your product. And to make sure, and this is something that people don't even think about, I think, is that to make sure that the same consistency, the same product is going to each restaurant. So the whole production for the month doesn't have to be exactly the same. Just make sure the same consistency is going to each customer each month.
Now, you've had enormous experience in creating this success. What advice would you give to others who are potentially looking at trying to replicate that on the international scene?
I think is two things that we really protect in our business is our integrity and our honesty. We started off with the saying that we want our product to be as important to our customers as their custom was to us. So it's a two-way thing, and if they're making money out of our product, they're obviously going to come back and buy again. So we've got to make sure that and the other thing that we did was really, people doing it all the time now, but again, we got our name on the menu. I think we were the first to be able to do that. And then we brought their staff to the farms. Some restaurants, our beef is $130, $140 for a 200 gram. The next most expensive beef on the menu might be $55 for a 350 gram. And I know myself, if I'd walked into a restaurant and I saw that a piece of beef was going to cost me more than $100, I'd want to know why. So the fact that the staff come to the farms, they see our production system, and it's just not about the quality of the beef. We think our story and how we do things and how we run our farms is equally as important as the quality of our product. And I think this is seen, China, for instance, with all of the baby formula scandals and things that they had. The world is looking for food safety and they're looking for food security.
There's tremendous focus on food now, more than ever before with consumers. But science and technology is really changing things quite rapidly as well. We're seeing the rise of these so-called substitute products. What are your thoughts on those?
Look, to be honest, I don't have an issue, and I think they've got people will say we've done a good job and it's been a hard job. A lot of countries, especially Europe, and I think in the last couple of years there was even an African country that was starving and they were given GM grains and they refused it. So even GM, which is a grain, but it's got some modification in it so that it doesn't change the structure of the grains. GM foods is not accepted easily around the world. Now you've gone another step where you're talking about foods made from molecular and it's I know that the beef industry is talking about it at the moment is that like some of the companies that are making hamburgers and or beef burgers or whatever, and they're saying, okay, bugger off, don't use that name, that's meat. You haven't got a meat product. So, I think they've got a big issue in the future. I'm not saying there's not a place for it. I certainly don't want to go to a fancy restaurant and have to eat out of a petri dish or drink out of a test tube. I like doing what I'm doing. So,
can you imagine a substitute Wagyu product?
I think, as I said before, just a moment ago, we make a nice product, and let's say they make a product that's good. Equally as important in our marketing is our story. And I don't know that, somebody making a product out of a science lab is going to be as attractive and commanding for somebody that's, can see a history of a family farm and stuff producing a product. I think they've got their work in front of them.
Do the animal activists worry you in terms of what you do? Because, they're partly driving this sort of thing as well, so that there is,
Absolutely.
we're moving away from
and it's
animal
getting
husbandry.
really aggressive in the last 12 months. It really has got aggressive and coming onto farms. There's certainly advice being given to farmers all the time now on what our rights are, and to be honest, we don't have any rights. They can come onto farm and we can ask them to leave, and we can't force them to leave. The only thing we can do is ring the local police. But, you live in the country, they're not going to be there straight away, So yes, it is a big issue. It's a big issue because it's going to it could affect our employees' safety. It could affect our livestock safety. And not only that, if they, happen to put some sort of substance, leave some sort of substance on the farm, it could affect our biosecurity. So I think it's one of the biggest issues that we've got to front coming forward. Some of these activists are just over the top.
David, you've been incredibly successful with what you've done. Master breeder, farmer, educator. Where do you see Blackmores Wagyu going in future?
Actually, I was asked this by a Japanese television documentary on farm. And out of it comes, so I've got an answer for you, but at that time it came out and it just flowed, and I thought that's the best Japanese answer I could ever give. And they asked me what my goals were, and I said my goal was to have our worst carcass as good as our best one. And so that's what we're always looking for, improvement and trying to get there.
David Blackmore from Blackmores Wagyu Beef, thanks for joining us in the evokeAG studio today.
It's my pleasure.